Hey everybody, welcome back to Checkerboard Chat, the official sports podcast of the Daily Beacon. I'm Tyler Wombles and that's Damichael Cole. We're back here bringing you more Tennessee athletics news, updates, and, well, Damichael, whatever we feel like talking about. So first of all, we got a little bit of some football news here to cover, and then we're going to shift to some basketball updates, some tournament action going on, and then we'll get into a little bit of baseball and softball. So first of all, Damichael, obviously some big news on the football front this week. All-American freshman Trey Smith is going to be out for spring practice with an undisclosed medical issue. Obviously we don't know what that issue is, but that his spring practice time will be affected. He will likely be out all of it. So just Damichael, just getting into this a little bit, how much of an effect do you think this will have not only on Trey Smith but on Tennessee's offensive line depth as Jeremy Pruitt really breaks into his first season as the Vols head coach?
Well, it's big, to say the least. I mean, literally and figuratively, because, Trey Smith is no doubt about it. He's the best offensive lineman on this team, and he's stepping into a sophomore season, and no matter the sport, from year one to year two is always when you see a player make his biggest progressions. So, that's what a lot of people were expecting out of Trey Smith, to potentially go from a freshman All-American to a SEC All-American. And, it's something he could do. But this is big. This is a big setback for Tennessee and Trey Smith. And it's like, man, can Tennessee catch a break? Like, okay.
Doesn't seem like it.
The Butch Jones era is over, and the injuries are still here.
Yep.
So, and it was a freak injury. Like, it was. They said they discovered it while he was working out, and he's out for spring practice, and that's all they know. I know some people, some reports are saying, they're very confident in him coming back and, returning to normal. And then there are other reports saying his future as a Tennessee offensive lineman right now is unknown.
And that would be if that were to come to pass, where he would not be able to play for a foreseeable amount of time. That would be huge. That would just be a backbreaker for Tennessee, I think.
Yeah, but number one, obviously, you just you want the young man to get healthy and just get back healthy from whatever the issue is medically. But as far as football goes, this is big. You can look at it two ways. You can say, well, you know what you're going to get out of Trey Smith. Now you get other offensive linemen chances to step up. And the other way you can look at it is, man, this is a blow to the depth, and Jeremy Pruitt wants to come in and show what this team will look like in the spring, in practice, probably not to the fans as much in the spring game, but in practice he wants to, come out and say, this is how we're going to play. And can he do that without a guy on the offensive line like Trey Smith? That's the big question, because everyone knows Jeremy Pruitt is a guy that preaches physicality, and he talked about a lot last year about how this team was small, and we all know Trey Smith isn't small.
No.
So the offensive line just got a little bit smaller. You lose a little bit of depth. And, Trey Smith is a guy that's really good. So it's going to hurt them, and he's a leader. Me and Tyler saw it covering the team this season. Trey Smith, even as a freshman, it was evident that people in that locker room listened to him, and that's big. And now that he's a sophomore, there's no doubt about it, he was going to step into a leadership role. So this is a setback, but long term, we'll see, how it affects this team. Missing spring practice isn't the worst thing in the world for a guy like Trey Smith. So there's that. It's not like he's in a competition, like a quarterback competition or anything like that. We know he's going to win his job. So now it's all about, his health, him recovering from this, and where will the team go from there.
For sure, and I think another thing to sort of think about a little bit is, not only does it affect like you said, obviously it won't affect his experience too much because he already has that experience of starting multiple games, but it could affect the offensive line's chemistry because you've got a guy with Trey Smith who, showcased last year he could play. I think he played just about every position except center, at least 3 positions.
He played 4 positions and he started all 12 games.
Sure, so, and so, you could put him, Jeremy Pruitt could put him in spring practice at really any position. Say you put him at right tackle, even if he's not going to start at right tackle, you do that to get a guy some reps at left guard. Or put him at left guard, give another guy reps at right guard. So not having him there to fit in, you might be playing some other guys who wouldn't normally get looks.
Yeah, that's a big thing too.
For sure, and that could affect that chemistry of the offensive line because what happens when you have a guy like Trey Smith come back by the season, and you've got a guy who's played all spring practice, you got to take him out of the rotation because you assume that there's not. I would not say there are many linemen there who could take his job. So if we're just being honest, so
I don't think there are many linemen in the country that can take Trey Smith's job.
Well, that's true too.
Yeah.
But so I think it would be interesting to see, if Pruitt has to put Trey Smith back into the lineup, how would that affect the chemistry? Because obviously, an offensive line, it's a unit.
Right.
It's they say it's a brotherhood, it's a family. How does it affect it when you have one guy taken out and then you put another guy in, and you take him out and put the same guy back in? So.
Yeah, and we saw that a lot this year. I mean, me and you saw with this team, all of the pieces all over the place. I mean, at one point they were down to, 4 scholarship offensive linemen.
Yeah, it was crazy.
They were playing walk-ons and talking about moving guys that played tight end to, the offensive line. So
yeah, you had the sports writers in the press box just looking up, see someone's number out there on the offensive line. Who is that guy? Look him up. So. It was interesting. But, yeah, we'll see how that situation goes. It'll definitely be big for Jeremy Pruitt and Tennessee football. Mm-hmm. But now we're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to talk about some Tennessee basketball. Starting off with the men's team, Damichael. Just fill me in a little bit. What's going on right now with the men, and just what are you seeing?
Well, they have one game left this season, and it's been a very good season. A lot of people, were surprised. I mean, obviously they were picked second to last, which is one of the biggest motivating factors for this team this season. They were picked second to last, but their confidence never wavered.
Yeah.
And I asked them at the media days, I said, what do you think you guys will be at the end of the season? I asked Lamonte Turner, I asked James Daniel. Both of them said they expected this to be a Final Four team. At that time. I mean, this was before all of, the fans got on the hype train and the nation just knew how good of a team Tennessee was. They said they expected this to be a Final Four team. And, when the games came on, then you saw them play well against Purdue and Villanova and North Carolina and teams of that nature. So right now, I mean, this team looks good. There one game left this season. It'll be senior day. And obviously, this is a very young team, so they have one senior, and that one senior is a grad transfer. So James Daniel will be honored inside of Thompson-Boling Arena, and he's a big contributor for this team. He came from Howard as a leading scorer, one of the top scorers in the nation, and he's came to Tennessee and revitalized his whole game.
He has. So he has 2,000 points, doesn't he? Yeah, for a career, and that's huge.
He's the second leading active scorer in NCAA. So, and for him to say, I'm going to go to Tennessee and I'm going to sacrifice all of that, I'm going to sacrifice a starting spot, and I'm going to become a better passer, that was a real big key, for this team, because there have been a lot of games this year where Jordan Bone doesn't have it or Chris Darrington doesn't have it, and James Daniel is the guy that steps up. Mm-hmm. And that's how it is just for this whole team in general. They're very deep. But James Daniel will be honored on senior day, and I think the fans should be very proud of what they got from him this season. I know a lot of people may have expected him coming into the season to score 15 to 20 points a game. But now looking back on it, I think everyone will be very happy. If you asked at the beginning of the season, James Daniel wouldn't average over 8 points a game, he'd average around 3.5 assists, people would have looked at you like, he didn't have a good year. We expected him to come in averaging 15, but now that you see the way this team has been successful and you see James Daniel playing a key role in that success, you say, wow, he had a really good year. And I think the fans should really be proud of this senior. And senior day, they'll get one more chance at Georgia. And I think that game left a sour taste in their mouth. If you remember, Admiral Schofield kind of said, I'm paraphrasing, but he basically said, we'll see them again. We can't wait. We can't wait till they come to Thompson-Boling Arena.
That's a pretty good paraphrase.
So, I mean, they're excited for that game, and there's no doubt about it. They're going to be hyped up for it. It's the last regular season game of the year. Tennessee is looking like a likely 2 seed in the SEC tournament, and that'll put them, behind Auburn. And, I mean, who knows how it'll shake out behind those two teams with all those teams, bunched up right there. But Tennessee's in a very good spot before the SEC tournament. They'll play on Friday. Most likely, if they're the 2 seed, they'll play at 6 p.m. But if something miraculous happens and they end up not being the 2 seed, they'll be playing at 12. So right now, you can plan on Tennessee Friday at 6 p.m. will be their likely playing time in St. Louis. So not in Nashville this year. But yeah.
For sure, and I think that's one thing about this men's team that sort of you hit on a little bit, but those players knowing their roles.
Yeah.
I think that's something that Rick Barnes really stresses. He talked about, I don't remember which game it was exactly, but, someone said who led the team in rebounding. They were like, it was Admiral, and he's like, well, it should have been Grant. And those types of things, or they might say, oh, he picks on Grant a lot. I know it's Grant Williams, but he'll say, he.
And to piggyback on that, he said he actually said that Grant Williams is the best player he's ever had at taking criticism.
Sure,
and that stood out. Grant Williams is just a sophomore.
Yeah, exactly.
Grant Williams is a sophomore, and he said the guy's the best player. He said he wants the criticism, so he's that guy that says, Coach, just tell me the truth. I mean, how bad was I? And to have a player that wants that, I mean, you gotta think that makes a coach's job a lot easier.
For sure. And I mean, imagine how thick that guy's skin is going to be when he's a senior. Obviously we know Rick Barnes.
He's going to get it bad when he's a senior.
He's not just trying to insult him. He's trying to make him better.
Right,
but it's like you said, I like how you said that he's just a sophomore. So
yeah.
By the time he's a senior, he probably, he doesn't even know what the word criticism is. It's just words. It's just words to him, essentially. But yeah, so we'll get right back to women's basketball in a minute. But first of all, here's a word from our sponsor.
Welcome to Grand Forest Apartments. We have over 30 years of experience in building and managing student apartments on college campuses. We offer you, the students at the University of Tennessee, affordable luxury housing within walking distance of UT. Our professional on-site management and maintenance staff will make every effort to make your home away from home a great experience. Things that are included with living at Grand Forest are spiral staircase design. We also have free water and laundry facilities. We have walk-in closets and full-size beds. There is a dishwasher and microwave included. Free Comcast internet and cable TV. Our space also features a swimming pool. We also have 24-hour on-call maintenance. We hope you will choose to make yourselves at home with us.
Hey guys, welcome back. We're going to get into some more women's basketball talk here. Obviously, Damichael and I hit on some men's basketball. So talking a little bit about women's basketball, Damichael, obviously the Lady Vols, they did defeat South Carolina in their regular season finale on Senior Day. Courtney Dunbar, Mercedes Russell, and Jamie Nard were all honored before the game. Obviously, Nard and Russell are two players that are, the leaders of this team. They're players that, Jamie Nard is leading the team in scoring. Mercedes Russell has just, I don't know the exact number, but it's an insane amount of double-doubles. She just became, I think, just the sixth Lady Vol who's got to both, like 1,500 points, 1,000 rebounds. Just that's a huge mark for her. But yeah, so they did defeat South Carolina, and obviously they swept the Gamecocks for the season. And what's interesting about this, Damichael, is, if they move on to the second round of the tournament against South Carolina, which will be played Friday at 6 p.m., they would play South Carolina again if South Carolina wins.
Yeah.
And, South Carolina, pretty high seed, we would, it's more than likely not they would win. So if they did win, that'd be the third time Tennessee plays South Carolina this year. Obviously, Tennessee will take on Auburn to kick off, who's the number 10 seed. Tennessee's the number 7 seed. But if they make it to the next round, they very likely would play South Carolina. And, Damichael, I'll tell you what's interesting about that. In both the games that Tennessee has played South Carolina in, they have not had Aja Wilson. South Carolina has not had Aja Wilson, who is
one of the top players in the country.
Arguably the best player in the NCAA. She's a senior, a center, just a huge she's a lot like Mercedes Russell, double-double machine. And she actually was dealing with issues. I think the first time it was an injury, it was a leg injury. And this last game, she was experiencing vertigo. And so she did not make the trip with the team to Thompson-Boling Arena. And I'm not exactly sure what her condition is right now, but if she isn't ready to go for that second round of the NCAA tournament, if they make it that far, Tennessee could play South Carolina 3 times without playing arguably the best player in the NCAA. So that's pretty big.
Yeah.
So just, Damichael, what have you seen out of this team lately? And if they did have that matchup against South Carolina and Aja Wilson was back, how much do you think that would affect the game, and how much of a chance do you think Tennessee would have facing off against them?
Well, obviously, with Aja Wilson, South Carolina is a completely different team. And I think that's a big reason why South Carolina hasn't really failed, a lot in the rankings lately. They lost to Tennessee, and what did they drop? 1 or 2 spots in the poll? And that was basically because, poll writers they have it in the back of their head. This is a completely different team with Asia Wilson on the court, and understandably so. Mm-hmm. So obviously it'll be, a larger task for Tennessee either way it goes, I think, simply because, you beat a team 1 time, then you beat a team 2 times. Everyone said it's hard to beat a team 3 times. If you play a team in the NFL, you play a division opponent twice, then you have to play them in the playoffs. It's hard to beat them that 3rd time. The 3rd time usually is always a charm for that other team, and Tennessee will hope that it's not for South Carolina. So with Asia Wilson, I think it's a much taller task for Tennessee. Without her, I still think Tennessee has a really, really good shot at winning that game, simply because they've had their number. And granted, the last game, the senior day, they struggled in the first half a little bit, but in that second half, Tennessee was really dominant. And that was a very good performance. And I think just based off of that, Tennessee has all the confidence in the world when they see the Gamecocks on the other end of the court.
That's for sure. Yeah. And then obviously we're going to switch gears another time. I know I say that a lot, don't I? I say switch gears. It's just a good way to say it. Yeah, for sure. But anyway, so we're going to talk a little bit about some baseball and some softball right now. Start off with a little bit of baseball. Obviously, Tony Vitello's squad had a pretty jam-packed schedule this week. Yeah. I think, is it
5 games?
Five games this week. And it was against multiple opponents. It wasn't all a series. And, I know our Daily Beacon staff writer Blake Von Hagen, who covers the baseball team, he had a really good preview about this week's action. And he did mention this in it, but I think it is really interesting to talk about, that brings a lot of experience to this Tennessee team.
Yeah.
You've got a first-year head coach who,
he's still figuring it out.
Sure. And then, and you've got a young roster too.
Right.
You lost a lot of guys from last year. They have some guys, they have at least one player playing out of position.
Yeah, and he says it. He's kind of, up front with it. He's saying, we're still figuring this out.
Sure.
We, as of right now, Tennessee still doesn't have a consistent 3rd starter. Mm-hmm. So, of course, that's a big thing. Softball, baseball, that 3rd starter is always
that seems
a big
to be a
thing.
trend, doesn't it?
That's a trend at Tennessee this year. And, they're still figuring that out. But, man, 5 games in a week, that'll really that'll test your pitchers out more than anything. But, shockingly, Vitello said pitchers, that's not the main thing he's worried about.
Yep.
And, off the top of your head, you're like, what? 5 games in a week, and you're not even worried about
pitchers,
having pitchers available. But he said he wants to see these bats come along, this team progress as hitters. So, maybe that signals that he's more confident in his pitchers at this point. He's just trying to figure out who to use when and who to use how. But this is a big week, and, I expect them to be very successful this week. Like, as we've said, 5 games this week and 4 teams. They'll play MTSU twice. So they had the midweek game against Tennessee, MTSU, and then they play in the weekend tournament that's been moved from Smoky Stadium to
Lindsey
Tennessee.
Nelson. Yeah, for sure. And then I think that, obviously bouncing off a little bit more on that, you talk about, 5 games in a week. I think that could almost serve as a microcosm for the entire season.
Yeah.
Because, you talk about this young team needing that experience. Well, a baseball season is long. And it's hard work, and you've got guys playing, 9-inning games a lot of times more days than not. And so I think you have that 5-game week stretch where it really shows you who you can count on in your team. Not only who can produce runs, who can, get some shutouts, who can get some strikeouts, but also, who's going to be there for their teammates in this long stretch, who's going to stay on the field, who's going to not let that tiredness get to them. And that could really help out a young team, and it could really help out this first-year head coach in deciding, who are my guys that I should stick with? Who are my guys that I can count on? Who are the guys that I can build this foundation off of heading into the next couple years, in his tenure as Tennessee's head baseball coach? So this week will definitely, be very interesting to see how it will affect the team and, how it will sort of breed what Vitello wants to breed and wants to see in the coming weeks. And just finally, we're just going to touch on softball a little bit. Obviously, Damichael, the Tennessee softball team did move up from number 11 to number 5 in the rankings, which is a huge jump. What have you seen from them so far? Obviously, they only have one loss. What have you seen from them so far, and what do you think that they'll do throughout the next stretch of the season?
You can't help but be impressed with this team. I mean, the pitching staff, the top 2 pitchers are doing what you expected. Kalen Arnold, Matty Moss, they're taking care of business.
Yep.
And hitting lineup-wise, I mean, they're playing well now. I mean, against Oregon in the Marinetta Classic they won that game 1-0. It was more of a pitcher's duel with Matty Moss. She had an amazing game that game. But, I mean, you have to stay optimistic because at the same time, Brooke Vines isn't even back yet. And that's the second-best hitter returning from last season behind Megan Gregg. And we've seen the top of the lineup, they've been pretty good. Jenna Holcomb, she's been getting on base a lot for Megan Gregg so she can, pound up those RBIs. And when you have Brooke Vines as well, I mean, this team can get a lot better. And, I mean, they're ranked 5th right now, and they can still improve a lot. But, man, I'll tell you, the SEC this year it's otherworldly.
Yeah.
This week, 11 teams from the SEC are ranked in the top 25.
It just means more.
It just means more, man. I tweeted that out. Yep. I was like, it just means more. And you have to factor in, too, Arkansas isn't ranked, and Arkansas is probably right in there. So, basically, there are probably 12 SEC teams in the top 25 that should be in the top 25. That's half of the top 25
that's
teams.
Insane, yep.
Like, that's crazy. So, Tennessee, they're getting closer to that SEC slate, and I mean, all of those teams that are ranked are going to be, some pretty tough opponents. But Tennessee's definitely capable, and of course, just like baseball, that third starter is going to be something that they have to develop. And right now, they're still trying to figure that out. But I think with this lineup coming along and, players getting healthy down the road, they'll be fine. Yeah. For
sure. And people talking about, is the SEC a football league or a basketball league? Man, this is a softball league.
It's a softball.
Get out of here.
Has men's SEC football ever had 11 teams ranked in the top 25?
Not that I can recall. I don't think it's happened. This is a softball league, man. All right. So that's going to wrap it up for us today, guys. Thanks for watching. We really do appreciate it. Make sure to check out the Daily Beacon's website for more content. Also our Twitter. Follow us both on Twitter just for more content. But thanks again for watching. This is Checkerboard Chat with Tyler Wombles and Damichael Cole. And we'll see you next time.